Hey, good afternoon everyone. This is Frank. Hey, welcome to my shop. Today, this project over the next few days is going to be a series of different cabinets for my wood shop. I've got a long wall in the shop that I've set aside for my chop saw and for my radial arm saw. Both of those saws are going to share the same wall, which makes sense. They both can share the same a fence system. And so in order for me to start on that wall, I've got some wall space that I want to put some cabinets in. It's not going to be real simple because I've got my dust collection system that comes down, so I have to build these cabinets around the dust collection system. But I do want to get those built first and get them up onto the wall before I go and start building the base cabinets for the chop saw and for the radial arm saw. So we've got a series of let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5 different cabinets, and I'm starting to use SketchUp a little bit. It's pretty slick. I like that better than the other competition that's out there, and so I spent some time kind of learning SketchUp a little bit more and decided to go ahead and do the build on SketchUp first, so I would have a good series of plans to create a cut list. So let's go ahead and go over those plans. Okay, so here is a rough drawing that I started off with, and it identifies the area and kind of the description of where I want to put these cabinets. So all of the cabinets are going to be 16 inches deep. I have 3 different areas that I have to go around my shop collection system. So what I marked them as a middle cabinets, right side radial arm. There'll be the cabinets to the right of where the radial arm goes, and then left of the chop saw, which would be the cabinets that goes to the left of the chop saw dust collection. So the middle cabinets, I have a total space of 56 inches by about 32 inches in height. So I divided 56 up and came up with 2 28-inch cabinets. And when I measured them out, I kind of mocked them up a little bit, and that seems to, I think that cabinet width will be just fine for those 2 cabinets. Next, I've got the right of the radial arm saw, and those are going to be 2 cabinets. Again, 64 inches was my total width, so I cut those up into 2 32-inch cabinets. Those would be 36-inch height, so I could have a little more height than the ones that are in the middle. And then lastly, to the left of the chop saw, I've got a 32-inch width that I can put a cabinet, and again, that one will be 36 inches tall as well. Now that I've got that done, I went into SketchUp and created these drawings. So if you take a look at this first drawing, it's kind of a 2D look at it. What I have is a basic carcass, which is 28 inches wide, 32 inches tall, and again, they're going to be 16 inches deep. I've applied a backboard for bracing as well as to screw it into the wall. And then I also use a French cleat. All of my cabinets I've ever built, I use a French cleat system, and I'm going to do the same thing here in this shop. I like this system because it's easy to be able to move in and out if you have to change up your shop layout. So I have 2 of these, 2 middle cabinets, and what I did is after I created the layout, then in SketchUp, I took and broke down those cabinets and laid it out onto a 4x8 sheet of plywood. Now, with that said, I made sure I arranged the grain in the proper direction that I wanted, showing which sides were which. So these 2 cabinets are totally onto 1 full sheet of plywood. The next cabinets, which is 1 left of the chop saw and 2 right side radial arms, again, are going to be 32 inches in width, but 36 inches in length. Again, they're all 16 inches deep. Again, same type of bottom cleat for support as well as a top French cleat to be able to hang it. And this is going to be done on 2 different sheets of plywood in order to get those 3 cabinets. And you know, the layout's pretty much the same, keeping the grain in the right direction. It basically helps me to go and break these sheets down into 3 different sections. I'd make a cut here, I'll make a cut here, and then I can use the table saw to go ahead and make the rest of the cuts. Same thing with this sheet. I'm going to basically make a cut here, make a cut here, and then I can break these down on the table saw. In order to make these cuts in thirds, I'm going to use my Festool track system, and we'll go ahead and cut the plywood down to the appropriate size. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start cutting up these 2 sheets of plywood. Again, I got 2 of them stacked here on top of each other, and I've got the clamps holding it in all 4 corners so that it doesn't move. I've made my mark at the 36 inches, actually a little bit over 36, about a 1/16 of an inch. And I'm going to go ahead and break down these pieces of plywood into manageable pieces to take over to the table saw. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I've got the 3rd sheet cut, and this is going to be at 32 inches, and that'll give me these 3 parts to go and break down on the table saw. So I've adjusted the depth of cut on my Festool track saw, and we're going to go ahead and get cutting. Okay, now that we've got all 3 of our sheets of plywood for these cabinets cut down into thirds, and I did some trimming on the table saw to take off the factory edge, now's the time to start breaking down these sheets into their respective sides. So we have sides that are going to get cut down and ripped, and then the top and bottoms will get cut down as well. Then lastly, we'll start cutting up that the second third of the sheet, which is the tail off to the right. Those are going to be for all the bottom cleats of the cabinets and also the French cleats on the top. So let's go ahead and get started and start cutting up these sides and tops and bottoms. Okay, I've reset the fence on my table saw to 15 3/4 inch, and I'm going to go ahead and break down the rest of those thirds and clean up the factory edges, and that'll get me all of my tops and sides for all 5 of the cabinets. So let's go ahead and get started. Now all the sides and tops are ripped and all stacked up. So that is completed. So now we have to go and trim up the cleats and the French cleats. So we'll get started on that now. Now that we have all of the cleats cut for the top and bottom of all the cabinets, and I also cut the cleats at 4 inches for the wall. So as we create those cleats into a French cleat by cutting a 45-degree angle on the edge of the board, when it gets screwed to the wall, it'll marry with the 45-degree French cleat that's in the top of the cabinet. So let's go ahead and get that started. I already changed out my saw blade insert because I've got a 0 clearance for my normal cutting. I put in the factory insert so that I could tilt my saw to 45 degrees. So that's tilted at 45 degrees. It's very difficult to measure that distance, so it's best to just use your eye. So I got down to the ground level, kind of eyed up the 4-inch board, making sure that it would cut here from this corner over. First pass did a great job, so let's go ahead and start cutting the rest of these French cleats. Okay, we're now going to go ahead and drill the shelf holes that are going to be in the sides of all these cabinets. It's a lot easier to do it when they're flat sheet goods than it is when you get the cabinet completed. So what I did is I created a spacer that I wanted to leave to be able to use for mounting my hardware for the doors. So I'm going to start off by putting the spacer up to my template and go ahead and drill down, and then put the spacer down at the bottom, move the template, and continue on with the holes till I get down to the bottom of that template. That should pretty much give me my lowest shelf being 7 inches, and with my highest shelf again being 7 inches from the top, which is going to be suitable for what these cabinets will be used for. So once I do one side, then I'll flip the board over and do it on the other side. This is there's many different templates out there in the marketplace. The one I'm using here is a template I got from Rockler about 10 years ago. And it's called Jig-It. Actually works pretty good for me. I know there's a lot of other jigs out there that you can use with your router, but I kind of like this one with the drill bit. I think it's a little bit quicker and easier for me to set up, and it makes a pretty good hole. It comes with a bit that is a brad point bit at the tip, so it makes a nice clean round cutting hole. So let's go ahead and get started. Now what it also does, it comes with a parts kit in here, and what I do, I usually keep one of my shelf pins inside of it, and that way when you get ready and you need to move the pinholes down, you can go ahead and bring my block down to where I wanted to have it and kind of line it up and say, okay, where's going to be my next best hole? There it is right there. And so I've now got the template locked in place, and we'll go ahead and continue making the drills, the holes. Okay. Okay, there you have it for this side. Now all we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and flip it to the other side, do the same thing, and then I've got, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 more sheets, sheet sides to go ahead and put the holes in it. So I got a lot of drilling to go. We'll talk to you here in a little bit. I'm going to continue on, finish up these sides, and then we'll get into pocket hole jigs. Well, I'm done drilling the holes for the shelf pins. Got them all completed. I made one mistake on one of them, and that is I marked the tops of all of these panels, because when you go to measure down and start your hole from the top and you drill all your holes, move the jig, drill the rest, on one set when you flipped it, I started from the bottom and went up. So what I did is I did the same thing on its partner, so that when I put the shelf in, it's only about 1/8 of an inch difference, so when I put the shelf in on the front, it'll actually slope a little bit, just shy of 1/8 of an inch toward the back. So I'll have to make sure when I build the cabinets that those two sides go together. And then I realized my mistake, and it's like, you know what, it's no big deal. These are shop cabinets, and it's only going to be off by just a little bit less than 1/8. So, so I got the shorter cabinets and the taller cabinets done. Next, we're going to go ahead and start doing the pocket hole drilling. And taking a look at our drawing, I kind of marked on the drawing so that I could get some bearing on what pieces do I want to do the pocket hole drilling on, so I don't drill and make a mistake again. So it's going to be the tops and the bottoms, which are the boards that don't have the holes in it for the shelf pins. And then also the back French cleat will get the pocket holes, and then the bottom cleat will get the pocket holes. So let's go ahead and get started. I got a lot of pocket hole drilling to do. Well, I'm done with doing the pocket holes in the tops and bottoms of all the cabinets. So now I'm ready to start working on doing the pocket holes for the French cleat and the bottom cleat. Here it's critical to remember that when you go back to the drawing that I showed you earlier, that you put the pocket holes on the same side where we have the 45-degree cut, okay? And that's because you want this 45-degree to be inside the cabinet, so that when it's inside the cabinet and it has its counterpart 45-degree on the wall, that's how the two French cleats will lock together with each other. So let's go ahead and start doing the pocket holes for all these cleats. All right, we're ready to go ahead and start assembling our cabinets, and I'm going to do that with some glue as well as the pocket screws that I put into the tops and bottoms. One of the handy things I've got, actually just recently got, and it really is helpful doing things yourself and trying to put pieces together or assemble any kind of cabinetry or carcasses together. These are from Woodpeckers, and they really are a clamping system where you can clamp in pieces of material at a T or an L or a 90, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. These are pretty cool. They're pretty easy to use and they're pretty easy to set up. But you can see the intersection here with plywood. You can either make it a T joint or you can make it an L joint. And on the back side it has a handle to go ahead and tighten. And when this piece tightens, it tightens down on a curve, and it actually tightens up against both the X and the Y axis on this clamp. So they're really handy to have to hold things upright while you get it in place and glue it and screw it, and that's what I'm going to do using these new clamps in my shop. So let's go ahead and I'll take this off, unloosen it, and get some glue onto the end. I'm not sure really I need glue, but again, I kind of overkill everything. I'm going to put some glue on the end of this board and make sure that I'll put it right here, and then I'll bring it back in play, and then I'll go ahead and do the pocket screwing. Okay. Perfect. It's really nice too. These things really keep the edges of the plywood aligned well together. Okay. Flip it over and let's go ahead and put the other side on. Now I'm not putting a lot of glue on it because it really, with the pocket hole type of construction or assembly, it really doesn't need a lot of glue, but I just want to be able to keep it tacked in place. Okay. Okay, there you have it. We've got one carcass put together for this cabinet. This is one of my 28-inch cabinets. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and get ready and screw the two cleats in, the French cleat and the bottom cleat. Okay, now that I got the cabinet upright, I'm going to go ahead and put the bottom cleat in. And then we've got the top cleat, which again is that French cleat that has that 45-degree angle on it. And we'll end up putting that inside here and securing it with the pocket screws. And then check the squareness. I already did that once, and the best way to check that squareness is corner to corner. So when I measure from one corner to the other, it's 42.5. And when I come down and measure from this corner, I am at 42.5. So right now it's actually pretty square. So these braces will actually force that squareness. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, take care of those. And now we'll go ahead and flip it around and do the French cleat. All right, we got them all in. Okay, we got one down. And what do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, we got 4 more to do. So the process is going to be identical for the other cabinets, making sure that put the sides together appropriately, making sure that I've got my 36 and 28-inch cabinets so I don't mix them up. Of course, I got them marked. It's kind of like measure twice, cut once. Well, this is think twice, assemble once. And then you got to really make sure that you put the French cleat on in the appropriate way as well, because you really want it to be slanted in toward the cabinet, not on the outside of the cabinet, because it doesn't work that way. It wouldn't hang. So let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and assemble the balance of these, and then we'll get into the next stage of this cabinet build. Well, all of the cabinets are now put together. And we'll kind of go over what the next step is going to be on these cabinets, and I'll finish up part 1 of this cabinet build. So what I plan to do is to continue trimming out the cabinets in this shop with Padauk like I did with the outfeed table that I made. And so now I'm going to go ahead and mill up some strips of Padauk to put a 1/2-inch strip to cover the plywood face on all the front of the cabinets. So here I've got all of the leftover strips from my outfeed table that are all Padauk, and I've got them marked with the pieces that I need, and I've got some rough trim marks. So what I need to do now is just put this through my surface planer to get it down to the thickness of the plywood, which is a 32nd of an inch shy of 3/4 inch plywood. And we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll cut up the pieces and take it onto the table saw and rip 1/4 inch pieces that I can go ahead and apply to the face of all of those cabinets. So let's go ahead and get going on doing some planing. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start cutting these pieces of Padauk down to size so I can take them over to the table saw and rip the strips. Okay, we're going to go ahead and I've got the table saw set up for the 1/2 inch strips. I've got my gripper ready to go so that I can push the sticks through and not have it kick back. And what I also did is I went and jointed the edge of one side of every board. And the purpose of that is I want to make sure that I've got a nice flat surface. And after each cut, the most I can get is 2 pieces out of each of these. After each cut, I'm going to take it over to the joiner and join it so that I always have a complete flat surface going up against the fence, and then that will keep a flat surface that's going to be attached to the face of the cabinet plywood. So let's go ahead and start ripping. Now that I've got all of the strips cut for the face of all the cabinets, and again using Padauk, it's African wood, and you can probably see it fairly well. Let me try to get them lined up here. When you cut this wood, it's kind of got a very orange look to it, and when I decided to trim out the shop using some type of wood that is kind of a unique color. That's why I really picked Padauk, because it turns into almost a dark, burnt, red-orange cherry look to it. And over time, it'll take probably, I'd say about 4 or 5 months where it'll start to really turn that dark color. As you can see on my outfeed table, it was pretty much the same color as these strips, that orange color, and you can see just how dark that Padauk really turns out. So it's a beautiful piece of wood, and it really complements the birch plywood. So let's go ahead. I'm going to end up gluing these strips, and then I'm going to use my nail gun to tack them on, and that's pretty much what will hold them in place. So let's go ahead and get started. Good. Okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and complete the rest of the strips. Pretty much go on the same way. Okay, here it is. Here's one that's trimmed out completely, and this is actually really good. I'll have some light sanding to do, but they're pretty much the exact same thickness as the plywood. So it turned out pretty good. So 1 down, 4 more to go. So let's go ahead and continue on. Well, we're done. I've got the Padauk trimmed out on all the face of all of the cabinets. Really looks good. let the glue go ahead and dry, and that'll be the end of this video. I'll have a part 2 video where we'll go ahead and start creating the doors for each of these cabinets. I intend to go ahead and put a couple coats of polyurethane, probably a wipe-on polyurethane, but I'm not going to videotape that because you all have seen probably hundreds of videos on wiping down polyurethane. But I'm going to go ahead and do that and then probably get them mounted up onto the wall. But the second video we'll probably go ahead and start cutting out the birch plywood for the doors, and then we'll cut up the 2-inch wide strips of Hadouk to kind of match the outfeed table drawers. So that'll be video number 2. So please stay tuned to the video, to my channel rather. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you really liked it, please go ahead and share it with your friends. And I ask you to please subscribe to my channel as I do additional videos on the shop equipment, trying to get all the cabinets put together. You'll get an automatic reply that there's a new video that's up on YouTube. After the shop is completed, I've got some great projects that I plan to work on. A bedroom set, I've got some lighting, some light stands that I want to make, and some additional furniture. So stay tuned. We've got a lot of great things going on in the shop here, and excited to share it with you. Okay? Hope you have a good day, and we'll see you around the block.